a trusted partner of Duo. We see them as leaders and experts in the field of security and MFA. So you're all in great hands with them. I'm very excited to be part of their webinar series and talk about MFA. So let's kick things off. So we will look at the threat landscape today. We'll cover what MFA is. We'll look at Duo MFA. We'll look at compliance as it relates to MFA. We'll do a demo, and then we'll cover 5 commonly asked questions about the Duo product. And then, like Rebecca mentioned, we'll finish off with a Q&A with a Duo engineer and myself if you have any sales questions. So let's begin by looking at the current threat landscape and how we got here. It's an understatement to say that 2019 changed the world. It also had a big impact on IT environments. So here is our new IT reality. It's become increasingly difficult to establish user and device trust. Sorry about that. All right. So we saw companies embracing cloud hosting of data and applications and a shift to remote work during this time. Applications and data were hosted not only on premise, but also via infrastructure as a service and software as a service. Employees and contractors were accessing that data with more devices. Bring your own devices, mobile devices, as they worked from home. In 2019, 16% of people said that they worked remotely. That number today is 77%. And attackers use the expansion of perimeter to gain access to these apps via compromised passwords and devices. So in this new landscape that we find ourselves in, let's look at 2 common breach factors: compromised credentials and compromised devices. 81% of breaches involve compromised credentials, and 63% involve compromised devices. The key takeaways here are that credentials are easy to steal, and attackers will often use compromised devices to gain access in a breach. Now, this isn't to say that end users are willfully giving the bad actors their credentials. Bad actors have become increasingly savvy during this time and have even built out their own category, HAS, hacking as a service. They're gaining access to credentials via phishing scams, brute force using customized software, and credential stuffing, which is an automated process of stealing credentials after a data breach to gain access to other online accounts of a person. This is how attackers gain access to 35,000 accounts in 2022 during the PayPal breach. So now let's look at what is multi-factor. With the rise of security risks, so did solutions to combat credential vulnerability. The number one way to protect credentials is MFA. So let's dive into what MFA is. MFA, also known as 2FA and multi-factor authentication, is the combination of something you know, your username and password, and something you have. Verifying your identity at login with MFA with something like your cell phone, landline, hardware token, wearable like an iWatch, adds another layer of security to the sensitive information you access online and dramatically reduces the risk of someone else gaining control of your accounts, even if they have your password. In 2018, Microsoft released a report stating that MFA reduces the likelihood of a breach by 99.9%. Now, this figure will vary based on the type of MFA implemented and the scope it covers, both in end users and application. Nonetheless, MFA dramatically reduces the risk of compromised credentials being the cause of the breach. Now, this all begs the question, why hasn't MFA been more widely adopted? The MFA landscape has been complex, both from the administrative side and end user experience. In the last 2 decades, there has been a rise in MFA companies and companies adding MFA as part of their offering. Just like credentials were low-hanging fruit for cyber criminals, MFA software was low-hanging fruit for cybersecurity companies. What you saw was many vendors entering the space with sometimes clunky and niche MFA solutions. MFA that only covered a few applications or focused on adding MFA to their own solution. These solutions tended to be difficult to deploy and difficult to use. Now, this was not uncommon for an end user. Multiple different authenticators and methods to authenticate, including cumbersome tokens and one-time passcodes that the user had to type out. Now imagine having to replace your phone and restore 8 authenticator apps. I would hang on to my phone just to avoid this. So let's talk solutions. Duo MFA aims to make your end user experience seamless, provide consolidation, and reduce security gaps by providing extensive MFA coverage in your environment. So before being acquired by Cisco in 2018, Duo was a standalone MFA company focusing on just MFA for 8 years. The user interface was top of mind for Duo. You have a clean and clear prompt for your user and a wide variety of auth methods. You can use the Duo push for one-tap authentication on your smartphone or wearable. For those employees that don't want to download the app on their personal device, we have landline, text message, U2F like a YubiKey available, hardware tokens that you can attach to a keychain for those use cases are also an option. Broad coverage was also very important to us. From logging into your Windows machine or Mac computer, to protecting VPN access to almost all VPNs, your cloud and web applications like Salesforce and Workday, to protecting email, whether it's G Suite or your Microsoft environment, this can all be done with one solution. Now, you may not see the logo of the resource you have in mind that you'd like to protect. This is not an exhaustive list of what we cover. Our generic integrations can protect applications using the protocol SAML, Radius, LDAP, and OIDC. If it supports one of those protocols, we'll be able to protect it with Duo. So connect with Tab about the applications you want to protect, and then we'll work with them on a deployment plan for your company. So we've covered the threat landscape and MFA solutions used to combat bad actors. Now let's talk about compliance. So we'll start with cyber liability insurance. Excuse me. So cyber liability insurance generally covers your business liability for a data breach involving sensitive customer information like social security numbers, credit card numbers, account numbers, and health records. Along with the legal fees and expenses, cyber insurance typically helps with restoring personal identities of the affected customer, notifying the customer of a data breach, recovering compromised data, and repairing damaged computer systems. Now, insurance companies want to cover their customers, but also want to minimize their risk. So they have mandates for their clients. Common mandates include protecting remote access like RDP, protecting VPN access, and email with MFA. These MFA regulations are also industry-based as well. One of these logos may look familiar to you based on the industry that you're in. Whether you're a federal contractor looking to meet NIST compliance or a healthcare provider looking to be HIPAA compliant, or an organization that needs to be PCI compliant because of the financial transactions you process, MFA is necessary. I'll also call out FTC compliance because that deadline is right around the corner on June 9th. So if you're a financial institution, like a car dealership that processes loans, this will affect you. So home stretch here, everyone. If you're thinking about your environment and concerned that it's too complex for Duo to handle, let's look at the Duke case study. Duke deployed Duo to 54,000 student, faculty, and staff, protecting a diverse set of applications across multiple departments and schools. Whether you're looking to protect a large and complex environment or a few users at your small business, Duo's MFA provides speed to security and a solution your end users will tolerate. Let's be honest, no student loves MFA. So now that I've talked about Duo for about 10 minutes, let's look at the product in action. Here, we'll look at the end user experience for someone logging into their Outlook mailbox that has Duo enabled. The user will use Duo Push via the Duo mobile app. So the end user will enter in their credential. It's the same interface from the start, and they'll click login after they put in their username and password. They'll get redirected to the Duo mobile prompt, the Duo prompt. Here, they'll select the authentication method that they wish to use. In this case, we'll select send me a push. The push notification will show up on their phone, and the end user will access that push notification. There, a list of information will be presented. Your logo can be added here to customize the Duo prompt. It will show the end users that's attempting to log in, the location, and the date and time of that authentication. Based on that information, you'll hit approve or deny, and then you're into your system. So last thing that we'll do here before the Q&A is go over 5 commonly asked questions about Duo. So how does Duo prevent phishing attacks or push bombing? As MFA becomes more widely adopted, so do attempts to get around it by bad actors. If this is a concern for you, you can enable verified push. This can be done for applications you want added security for or a group of users. When you have this feature enabled, the user will enter in their credential, receive a Duo prompt with 2 steps. Enter in the numbers displayed on the device, a laptop or computer, into their Duo mobile app, then accept the push notification. If your user is not actually in front of the device that is trying to gain access to the application, they will not have those numbers an option to select, I'm not logging in. This is just one of the added security features available with Duo. So I highly encourage you guys to connect with Tab to learn more about things like geofencing and trusted endpoints to even add another layer of security with MFA. So next we'll look at offline access. So what if my computer is offline? Think of an employee being on an airplane with a laptop that is protected with Duo. Can they log into that device? The answer is yes. When Duo is being set up on that device, offline mode can be configured by your administrator. The user will enroll into offline access. The prompt on the left is what they'll see during the initial rollout of Duo. Now, when the user is offline, they will have 2 options for offline access: a TOTP code in the Duo mobile app or a security key like a YubiKey. So next we'll look at what happens when an employee leaves or quits. Users can be removed from Duo manually by an admin or automatically when they're removed from the synced group if the user is managed by directory sync like an Azure or AD for Duo. A full directory sync will run twice a day. So making removal of the users from Duo either manually or via sync is a great way to keep your data safe while offboarding an employee. Without 2FA, the employee will be unable to access your applications protected with Duo even if they have credentials. So next we'll look at if Duo is an MDM. So, excuse me, some employees will be resistant to putting what they consider to be a company application on their personal device, with fears that their data is being controlled by their employer. This can often be combated with some education about what Duo is and what Duo is not. Duo Mobile is not an MDM. Your administrators will not be able to take control of your device through the Duo Mobile app like an MDM would to perform things like a remote wipe of your device. Duo Mobile cannot see your user data like your contacts, text, photos, information about other applications on your phone, or files. So finally, we'll wrap up with what if my device is lost or stolen? So if enabled by your administrator, the end user will be able to manage their existing device and add a new device. They will have to verify their identity before doing so. So it's encouraged for users to have 2 authentication devices at enrollment to help with this process. So on the help desk and admin side, administrators can remove devices, add devices, and provide end users with bypass codes. You can set perimeters for those bypass codes based on the time and number of uses for that specific user. So that wraps up most our contact for today. We will start opening things up for questions. So let's hop into that. I'll stop sharing my screen and we'll take a look at the chat window. All right, bear with me as I. All right, Paul, are you on the line with us?
I am muted 6 different ways, but I'm here.
All right. All right, do we have any questions in the chat?
Just one. There you go. Perfect.
But you can feel free to bring it up, Paul, as far as what the question is and what the answer is.
Yeah,
Just in case
so
people...
for sure, like mobile device management is a tool where your organization can manage corporate phones, where they can, let's say it gets stolen, they can delete or wipe the data remotely. Alternatively, they can monitor or restrict certain applications, things being installed that might compromise their, total environment. Duo is not an MDM. We don't manage the device itself. We can put in restrictions to applications that are installed on the mobile device based off of policies that are configured. Maybe it's not on the most recent version of Android, right? And you want to have like a better security posture around updates, patching, things like that. Those are things we can enforce. Just to extend on that, again, we can't like delete the data off of phone, but we can restrict access to certain applications based off of your policies configured.
Awesome, thanks, Paul. It looks like that's our only question in the chat, or no, we've just got a new one.
Yeah, sure. So, let's say, I think the kind of greater question here is, how do you use a device associated with like a shared account, maybe a shared administrative account or something like that? I think that's maybe Rick's greater question. You can have one user associated with multiple 2FA devices, right? So if you log in, you see the Duo prompt, there's going to be a drop-down window where you select where that 2FA device is sent to. With Windows logon, for example, the prompt is going to have a selectable device up at the top. You'll hit the drop down after you log in with those administrative credentials, select whether or not you want to use a YubiKey, security key, 6-digit token, smartphone, right? Alternatively, if you saw the new universal prompt, right? The auth is a little bit different, but same experience for the most part. You're going to select the device that you want the Duo push sent to, and then with that shared administrative credential, you're going to select that security device or 2FA device.
So Paul, I can share my screen quickly and show when you mention select
Perfect.
a device. So here at the top of the prompt, you'll see device. And so if this is a shared account, so and some admin credentials, you'll be able to select the device so that 10 people are not receiving a push notification, or the push notification is not going to the person that it's not intended. And like Paul mentioned, other methods are available as well once you switch over the device. So Sharon. All right. Any more questions? Anyone that wants to come off mute and has a couple questions?
Yeah, this is your time. I'm here for you guys. So if you got any security questions, feel free to ask.
I had a question.
Yeah, Rebecca.
What happens when I upgrade my phone? And we touched upon it a little bit in the presentation. So what
In
steps
regards
do
to
I
the
need to take?
self-service portal, right? So if the self-service portal is enabled, okay, and you access a web application that supports that self-service portal, you can set up Duo Central. Duo Central is something that we host with our Duo SSO integration. It's like a SSO panel where you can access all your applications available to you after you perform 2FA. You can log into there, and since your device has the same phone number, you can send like a phone, mobile, SMS authentication to that device to still perform 2FA on the new phone. But you can activate it with Duo Mobile or manage those devices, right? So you're still performing 2FA to get to that self-service portal, but you'll be able to activate and use a better method of authentication if you want, or an easier method of authentication for that new device that you received, right? And that reduces a lot of like the headache for your help desk staff, especially around Christmas time. And then beyond that, right, you can always call up the help desk, and they can, if there's like a help desk administrator on the Duo account, they'll have limited access, right? That is one of the functions they'll be able to perform on a per user basis.
Thanks, Paul. And I'm glad that you mentioned SSO, because I focused on MFA today, but we have expanded in our offering as well. And in our base tier, you'll have things available to you like SSO. So you have that one landing page, making it easier for your users to log into a vast variety of web-based applications that are protected with Duo by only authenticating once in order to get access to all of those applications. And then passwordless is also available on our base tier. So password management and the security risk that passwords sometimes do hold is something that you want to start getting away from. Passwordless is also available with Duo, and a great thing to talk about with your tab members.
And Farrah, what about talking about some of the AI you built in, the impossible travel and some of the other features that Duo might have?
Yeah, so before we started the webinar, Eric and I were chatting about the new features that are available with Duo. So one of the things that we've introduced is called risk-based authentication. So like I showed you guys the option to do a verified push, you can have that as an all or none for the application or for a group of users, but you can also tie it to risk-based authentication and AI that's linked to that account. So you're able to you're able to detect things like impossible travel. So if Eric is logging in from Connecticut, and then 5 minutes later, an authentication is attempted with his credentials in Michigan, we're able to detect that that travel is not possible. And then that will prompt the verified push. And so that will have Eric have to enter in a 6-digit code. If he's not actually in front of that computer in Michigan, which he's likely not, because that travel is not possible, then the authentication is denied and Eric can click, I'm not logging in. And then if Eric every single day for the last 60 days has logged into his workday using his Mac computer and a push notification, and then all of a sudden is using a Windows computer and using a phone call, we detect that as risky. And then we'll add in that verified push, that added step of security, so that Eric doesn't have to do it every single time. But when we detect that something is out of the norm or not possible, then we add in the verified push. And if Eric is not in front of that computer, he will not gain access. And then we're able to seize the push bombing if that's also occurring in that case. And then your administrator will also get a notification saying, this has been denied or marked as risky. Review these credentials because they are likely stolen. So a lot of new features that we're coming out with and utilizing AI is something that we're also doing. All right.
Anything else, folks?
Yeah.
Did you want to cover anything else, Farrah?
I had just one comment that I thought was pretty interesting, is I didn't know if you wanted to review how quickly and how well the system alerts you if there is something that isn't quite right.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody says that isn't me.
Paul, do you want to touch on that on the reporting feature?
Yes. Going through the mute buttons again, sorry. Reporting is going to be like close to real time as far as that goes. You might have a user that experiences like a push request that they denied, right? Because they deemed it fraudulent. Maybe they didn't recognize the push request. Maybe, you know, they were compromised, right, without them realizing it. And then if all that were to occur within, you know, 60 seconds and you were in the admin panel, there's a chance that that might not have populated in the reporting yet. But usually it's real time. It's there by the time you need to take a look at that authentication request. Is there like a more specific question you might have had surrounding like the kind of like responsiveness of reporting, or maybe I'm not catching that right?
No, I'll be very honest. I looked at, I inadvertently said it wasn't me. And you wouldn't believe the emails that were flying to all sorts of people saying someone's had a breach, somebody's logging in on Karen's account. And I was like, wait a minute, it was a mistake. So it was, but on the flip side of that, it was quite impressive to see how quickly everybody was all over the fact that this device had been identified as, you know, potential breach.
That's awesome. Good to hear.
Yeah, it was impressive.
The other aspect we should probably bring up too is, you know, with the cyber insurance and the NIST requirements and the compliance, you can't sort of be covered with 2FA anymore these days. You can't sort of do it. You really have to just go all in. You know, what will happen with cyber insurance is if you are covered, you've checked the box and you say you have 2FA, you have a breach and a ransom attack, they're going to want to see that that was actually the case. And if you can't show that it was, they may not pay. So, you know, be sure that if you think about 2FA, it really isn't all or nothing these days. It's kind of crazy to not have it in place. It's like driving without your seatbelt. If you're wondering why you've gone through the windshield, well, by this point, you should know why. And with 2FA, you actually can prevent that very inexpensively. There was a question about cost, and it's $3 is the most common one that we recommend to our customers that covers all these bases pretty well per user per month.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, that's a great point. Because typically sometimes people will use the free authenticator apps with their email provider, thinking that that covers them. But really the risky spots are email, but also your RDP connections and your VPN access. The SolarWinds debacle was stolen VPN credentials. So it's really important to not just protect email, but also protect the vast majority of your applications. And like I mentioned with Duo, you're able to do all of that with just one application, making it easier for your admins and for your end users. And the cost. I see that we have another question. Let's look at what that is. So the cost, and this is something that you should connect with Tab about, but it's based on the our tiers are not done per application. So our base tier really covers a lot. It covers the Windows logon, that VPN web application. You don't get more applications as you go from one tier to another, or added costs from on the dual license tier when you go from one edition to the other. Our edition shifts are the security features. So when I talked about that risk-based authentication, that AI component, that's included in our $9 edition. But it doesn't mean that additional applications that can be protected are included in that $9 edition. Think about additional security features. And like that middle tier edition includes geofencing. So if you want to block all authentications that are not in the US and Canada, or you know that you have employees in Germany, and those are the only 3 countries that you want to permit authentications from, then that's something that you can do. And that additional policy stack is available in that middle tier. Right.
All right. Anything else, guys, you wanted to bring up that we didn't cover? I guess hearing none. Farah, I mean, thank you very much for the great presentation and for being here with us and letting us know all about it. This is a recorded webinar, so folks can look at it later as well. Rebecca, do you have anything to say?
No, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who participated and everyone from Cisco for joining us. I thought it was a great presentation on why you should get 2FA through Duo and Tab.
Very good. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you
you.
guys.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.